What is up, guys? Eric here with TeamEccenTrick, and I'm bringing you guys my Mermail deck profile. This deck on the most recent ban list got both hit and helped at the same time. Unfortunately, Totally Awesome went to 1, so that's unfortunate. However, Sea Diva conversely came to 3, so that's also very fortunate. So the main deck, in terms of its combos, like regarding the actual combo potentiality of the deck, we have more consistent ways to play and get to our Neptibus. However, we just have one less negate in the extra deck, considering that before I was playing two-toed. That being noted, the deck will be seeing a surge in popularity now that we're also getting the deep sea support soon, so expect a lot of bandwagoners. But, you know, that's how Yu-Gi-Oh! Goes. You know, a deck gets good and then all of a sudden everybody wants to play it. I believed in this deck all the way from even before Neptibus came out. I saw how this deck functioned, and this deck was still really good. So, but this is my current list. Also, with the new cards from Dual Overload, this deck really has a lot of good combos, a lot of really strong 1 or 2 card combos that just allow you to loot 3 or 4 cards out of your opponent's hand. It's really nutty. So we're going to get into the deck profile, and I'll show you guys how I'm playing the deck, at least as of right now, until the actual new Deep Sea support comes out. So starting it off, we are obviously playing the triple Deep Sea Diva. This is now, I would probably say, your best starter card, even better than Prince, because it gets you 2 Prince. So, you know, not only that, it's a tuner, so that's immediately basically a Crystron Hackley 5 racks. So moving on, we have triple Neptibus. Obviously, this is the heart and soul of the deck. This is the combo starter, the combo initiator, the card that allows you to do a lot of the ridiculous plays that you want to do. Moving on, we play triple Atlantean Dragoons. Obviously, this card searches for sea serpents. Pretty nutty. Then 2 heavy infantry. Just popping face-up cards is really good, especially if you're going in for an OTK, or, you know, going in to put some damage on board. You know, just basically this card just allows you to not only make a push, but clear cards while you're making pushes. On top of that, if it's face up on the field, you get an additional normal summon of a level 4 lower sea serpent. Or actually, any sea serpent, rather. So play 2 of it. And then lastly, for the Atlanteans, I play 1 marksman, because popping face downs is really imperative, because back row decks are still a thing. On top of that, Marksman's effect on the field is if it does battle damage to your opponent's life points, you can special summon any level 4 or lower Atlantean monster from your deck. So that spans from heavy infantry all the way to Prince, which is really nice, because you can do, you know, let's say for example you have a pike on board with this and you do damage with this. You special summon the Dragoons, attack with the Dragoons, and then attack with the pike, and then in phase 2 you can overlay into Bahamut Shark. Now that Master Rule 2020 revision is in effect, which is really nice, by the way. It really helps this deck. This deck really does gain a lot of consistency with the Diva being removed from the ban list, as well as the fact that Master Rule revision is in effect. This deck just sees a lot of, you know, just powerful, you know, the fact that, like, this deck just got so much more powerful. So moving on, we have the Mermail component. So we are playing triple Teus, that's obvious. Teus is probably, again, as I've said multiple times, the best Mermail in terms of, you know, investing card economy. You just ditch 1 water to special summon it, and then you search a Mermail. So like if you ditch Dragoons, it's a +1. It's either a +1 or you break even, or either way, it's still just really imperative to a lot of really strong combos. After that, triple Megalo. This card is your pusher. This is a card that you push for as much damage as you can with. Usually, if you get Megalo out and you resolve his effect, you're probably going to win that game. If not, put tons of damage on board. From there, we're playing 1 pike, 1 Gund. That's literally it for the Mermail component in terms of the main deck. I've considered bumping Gund up to 2. I've considered putting Turge in. I've considered putting Mander back in. There's a lot of things that I've considered, and there are 3 cards in this main deck, maybe even 6 cards, depending upon how you feel about hand traps in this meta, that I could switch out for actual Mermail, like raw combo pieces that have Mermail in their names. But I kind of like this ratio. I like kind of where this deck is going. It's you know, it's kind of a skeleton list, but it functions rather well for being such a, you know, basic kind of bare bones list. So Then from there, the last water engine per se is the frog engine. Now, Toad did go to 1, but we are still playing this because it does. The way I look at the frogs at this point is it's a pseudo called by the grave that can negate anything. It can negate Nibiru, it can negate Gamma, it can negate whatever. So the way I look at this is if you have a swap frog, a water, and a diva. Basically like swap frog, water, diva, especially if you have 2 frogs. Like if you draw 2 frogs diva, you have a way to hedge your bets in terms of playing, in terms of starting your plays. Like you just open up with a Toad now because of the fact that you can just summon it in the main monster zone, which is really nice. So I definitely still think the frog package is really strong. Not only that, it does trigger Gund, which can be imperative in certain combo lines, because you can just like, if you have like a Pike and Grave you discard off a Megalo early on in the game, you can just like, if you draw into the Gund or even search the Gund off the Pike that you sent to Grave, you can just like ditch the Gund with the swap frogs and just facilitate it that way. So and from there, the last 3 waters in the main deck, at least in this version of the deck, is Moon Glacier. Obviously, ribbon cards from the hand is really important, especially with the way that this deck is evolving moving forward. 1 Lapis Dragon, because it is a tuner and it's searchable, and the moment you search it or even add it back from grave, so Toad, you can special summon it. And nifty little interaction is if your opponent's Boral sorting you and you have a Toad on board and they kill the Toad, and the Toad's effect resolves, you can add back the Lapis Dragon and special summon it to protect yourself from getting OTK'd. So I've done that a few times. It actually does really work. It's really nice. And then after that, 1 Fishborg launcher for the Hack the Fibrax. I know some people were playing Jet Synchron as well. I don't like Jet Synchron in this deck because it's a fire, but it's not a bad card. It's not at all a bad card. I actually think it's still really good. It's just it inherently kind of makes certain combos not work correctly. So I just feel like it's not that great. At least in this deck. So then moving forward, now we're getting into the hand traps, and again, people are probably going to disagree with me, but I'll explain my reasoning. I'm still maining the 3 Phantasmes, and I'm still maining the 3 Ash Blossoms. So the reason why I'm maining Phantasme is because let's say you do go second, and you draw into some of your engine requirements, like let's say for example you draw into this, let's say you draw into this, let's say you draw into your equip spell, your Phantasme just allows you to shuffle them back so you can facilitate them later on. Phantasme is a level 7 body on the board, which it ties into one of the cards in the extra deck, which you'll see. Also, it does negate a targeting effect. You do brick sometimes with these, like it's gonna happen. Mermails can brick. It just is what it is if you're playing hand traps in the build. But I just think that going second, you want other cards that can help you to break your opponent's board, because Mermails alone will just continually get negated. Like you can just, there's just so many cards and so many boards that Mermails can crack and Mermails can't crack, that you might want just things to hedge your bets a little bit and things to kind of bolster your plays. And then the Ash Blossom is just because it's standard. But like I was saying, my theory behind Phantasme in the main deck is the fact that like you shuffle back a lot of your engine requirements and then get them off later on. So that is it for the monsters in the main deck. So moving on to the spells, there's only spells, there's no traps, so we are playing Triple Called by the Grave. I feel like that's pretty standard. It's kind of obligatory at this point. I mean, we are playing a combo deck that's very intensive on trying to OTK our opponent, or at least make it so our opponent can't play if we're going first, so this card is just really good. 1, Biscayla Mizuchi, it stops Dark Ruler no more, as well as Super Poly, because it doesn't respond to the activation of the card. It negates on resolution, and it's not a chain. It doesn't negate on a chain link. It's just a continuous effect on the field that once the spell effect would resolve and be applied, it negates it right then and there. 1 Moray of Greed, because I mean sometimes you brick, like I said, and sometimes you'll draw like waters that don't do anything. Like you'll draw like multiple heavy infantries and a marksman or something, and you want to get to your divas and dragoons and whatnot, so you just Moray them back. I mean, if I was playing a more straightforward water, just pure water build where I am not playing any hand traps in the main deck, Moray of Greed would be a thing. Or I'd probably play 2 Moray of Greed in a salvage, but I just don't. At this point, I'm just trying to make this deck so it can go both first and second. So Then from there, 1 for 1 because, I mean, it's an extra copy of Neptibus and then 1 Upstart Goblin to draw cards. I mean, this card honestly could be salvage. I'm considering taking this out for salvage, but at the same time, Upstart just digs you deeper into your deck while salvage is not good in the early game. So that's something of note. And now we're getting into the extra deck, which is probably what has seen the most alteration in terms of new cards being released. So we'll get right into it. So 1 Apollousa, because you can still make this card and it's very easy to make, and on top of that, I mean, just being able to set up negates is really good. So from there, we are playing the Blacklisted Soldier, Soldier of Chaos. Now the thing about this card is, this is the card that I was talking about with Phantasme being relevant, is because let's say you're going second and then you summon Phantasme and your opponent sets up a board, you can, if you can get 2 other monsters on the field, you can link up the Phantasme and 2 other cards into this and then continue on with your combos, and now you have a big untargetable beater, because if you use a level 7 or higher monster to link summon this, it becomes untargetable and indestructible by card effects, which is really nice. Then from that one, Marincess Coral Anemone, it's a combo card. I mean, it's effectively a monster reborn for any water that's 1500 or less. It's once per turn, and on top of that, like, you can really just do a lot of stupid combos with this card. Like, it's actually kind of nuts, like, how many combos you can do. Then from there, 1 Crystron Hackley Fibrax. This card, Konami should have never printed this card, let's be honest here. This card is ridiculous. 1 Mermail Abyssalacia. I mean, it's Mermails, it's standard. That's kind of, I only play 1. I don't see why anyone would play 2, to be honest. I just feel like 1 is relevant enough. 1 Bajinki Hashima, which is funny because, if anybody knows me personally, they know that when I first started actually getting back into competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in like 2013, I think around hat format, I played Bujins. Bujin was my competitive deck, and I did rather well with it. Obviously, this is back when Kaiser Coliseum and Vanities were all still legal, but, I did play Bujin. So it's actually funny that my current competitive deck and my favorite deck at this point is actually incorporating a card from the Bujin archetype. It's actually kind of funny. And then moving on, last card for links is Mistar Boy, because you can't, as I've said before, bridge your way from Coral Anemone straight into Alacia. You have to, link off another water with Anemone and then make Alacia. So that's one thing that I will say I don't like about that, because Alacia, because Anemone is a Cyberse and not a fish, sea serpent, or aqua. So it is what it is, though. Moving on, now, Xyz monsters. 1 Mermail Abyss Gyos. This is probably, I'd say, the secondary boss monster to, maybe the third. Like, this deck doesn't really have too many boss monsters, but the boss monsters in the extra deck, I guess, they work. So you have Apollousa as number 1, the BLS Link as number 2, and then I'd say this is number 3. This just shuts down your opponent's board. It's basically Calamities, but it's mini Calamities. So, I mean, I would play Calamities with Mander in this deck, but honestly, like I said, I couldn't find the room, and I could cut the hand traps, but I really don't like the idea of going second and then not having any ways to respond to my opponent's plays. So, then 1 Dweller, obviously, because it's Dweller. I mean, it literally triggers Dragoons the moment you detach. 1 Bahamut Shark, because it's Bahamut Shark, and then 1 Toad, because, I mean, Bahamut Shark as well as the frogs. And here's the thing, is even if you make the Toad with the Bahamut Shark instead of the frogs can still link climb you, which is really nice. So that's just a little side note I wanted to toss in there. And then last but not least, the Synchro monsters. Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Bear. I haven't played this card in Mermail in a long time, but the combos with this card are actually ridiculous. 1 White Aura Monoceros. This card could be a Cypher Load Omega, to be honest with you. And that is something that I have considered, but I like the combo with this combined with like Abyss Pike and Diva and all that, because it just allows you to do a crazy hand loop while also setting up a Toad at the same exact time. So I just really like this card, to be honest. 1 Desert Locust for the Hackley Fibrax, because, I mean, take cards out of your opponent's hand, as well as if you haven't made Trishula already in your earlier combo line, you can Desert Locust right up into it during your opponent's turn. And then last but not least, 1 Tatsunoko for climbing your way into these synchros, which is funny because I haven't used Tatsunoko in years. But that is it for my current Mermail list. Rate and subscribe, leave your comments and ideas in the comment section below, and don't hesitate to give us respectful suggestions on content you want to see. Eric on behalf of the team saying take care, and TeamEccenTrick out.